Hello folks, let's create our own service. To do that, we simply have to come to the console and type nggs for service followed by the service name. Let's create a logger service. As we can see that there are two files that are created, which are logger.service.ts and spec.ts. So if we go to the src folder now, under the app we can see logger.service.ts is created for us. Okay, if you go to app module, you can see that there is a providers array here, which means that this array contains the list of all the services that the injector is going to make instances of. Like we saw in the last video, injector is responsible for creating instances of all the services. Now we need to declare our service here that we just created in order for Angular to know that this service is available to create an instance of whenever a component requires it. So let's do that and save it. Now let's create a component. We already know how to do that. Inside this component, let's create three buttons. Let's create two more. And let us see how that component looks on the UI. To do that, we'll need to go to app component, remove everything and add app demo. Let's save it and run our application ng-serve. All right, it is built. Let's go to the browser. We can see that three buttons are created. Now what we want is, looks like the yellow color didn't come. Let's see what issue is. Oh, all right. Yes, we now have three buttons. Let's give it some margin padding. These are some utility classes from the framework Bulma. Yes, there you go. So we have three buttons created. Now on each button press, we want to log something to the console or alert something on the browser window. To do that, we could have simply written those functions inside the component and called it on this button. But as I said, the components should ideally be lean or light, and they should only deal with the presentation logic. So let's use a service now. We go to our logger.service.ts, and inside this you can see that the decorator is different. It is an injectable decorator, which means that this service is available for the injector to create an instance. All right, let's write three methods: log info, console.log info logged. Okay, log error, error logged, and and log warning. Simple enough. So we created three methods inside this service. Now we need to inject this service into our component for us to use it. So what we need to do is inside this constructor, we need to say private followed by a name of the service. Let's say log service colon the actual service, which is logger service. And Angular auto imports it for us in VS Code. So now we have an instance log service of the type logger service. Now, if you make this as a private variable, you cannot access the methods from this service inside the template. If you try to do something like on click, if you want to call the log service dot log info, you won't be able to call that because that is a private variable. But when we rename this as public, you can use that variable log service inside of the template. As you see, there is no error, so we can directly use it inside the template. Let's do that for both other cases. Log service dot log error, and for this one, all right. So now we have injected our service inside this demo component, and we are using methods from this service using this instance variable. Let's see if it works. Info log, error log, and warning log. So it is working. If you see, these all methods were called from logger.service.ts. So we now know how to create a very basic service and inject it into our component using the constructor, using private or public keyword to control its access from template, and using methods inside the service to work with components. This helps to keep our components clean and helps us separate the business logic much more efficiently into services which are serving only a single purpose. So for example, the logger service is only responsible for dealing with logging statements. It doesn't need to know where this is getting used for it to function. For example, we could also create another component and inject the same service inside that, and it won't create two separate instances, but the same instance will be passed by the injector, like we saw in the previous video, that the injector is responsible for handling the number of instances of a dependency, which means that if the instance is already created by demo service, by demo component first, then it won't create another instance when it is injected into another component. That is the beauty of Angular, and it helps us to run our application at the optimum speed. Well, We'll cover more advanced topics on services in the coming videos. Thank you.